Bullies had no idea. This kid carries the blood of a ruthless mafia enforcer. What if the person you bully every day carried a secret that could destroy your life? In school, there are always those who think they are superior, those who choose a target, someone weaker, someone who won't fight back. What they never imagine is that sometimes silence hides a dangerous past. A past that, if awakened, can bring irreversible consequences. Today, you will hear the story of a boy who seemed harmless, an easy target for bullies. But what they didn't know was that he carried the blood of a ruthless enforcer from the underworld. They crossed a line they should have never crossed, and now they were going to pay the price. The first time Luca Moretti walked through the school gates, nobody paid much attention to him. He was just another new kid, skinny, quiet, eyes always downcast. The kind of kid bullies loved to pick on. His clothes weren't flashy, just a simple hoodie and jeans. He never spoke unless spoken to. He sat at the back of the classroom, avoided eye contact, and kept to himself. To everyone else, Luca was invisible. But for people like Tyler Grayson, the school's biggest bully, invisibility was a challenge. Tyler and his gang, Ryan, Chase, and Derek, had a rule. If you looked weak, you were a target. And Luca, he looked like the easiest prey they had seen in a long time. At lunch, Luca sat alone, eating slowly, his fingers barely touching his food. Tyler smirked and nudged Ryan. "Watch this," he whispered. Tyler strutted over, grabbed Luca's tray, and dumped it onto the floor. A hush fell over the cafeteria. "Oops," Tyler said, grinning. "Didn't see that there?" Luca stared at the mess, his expression unreadable. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He didn't even flinch. Instead, he took a deep breath, picked up his tray, and walked away. Tyler laughed. "What a loser," he muttered. What he didn't know, what no one knew, was that Luca Moretti wasn't just some random, defenseless kid. He was the grandson of Alessandro Moretti, one of the most feared mafia enforcers in history. And if there was one thing his grandfather had taught him, it was this: never start a fight. But if someone crosses the line, make sure they never forget it. After that first encounter, Tyler and his gang made it their personal mission to break Luca. Every day, it was something new. A shove in the hallway, a trip that sent him sprawling to the ground, notes taped to his back that read "loser" or "mute boy." They stole his notebooks, knocked over his books, whispered insults as they passed by. Luca never reacted. He simply picked himself up, dusted off his clothes, and walked away. To the bullies, it was proof that he was weak. To Luca, it was just patience. But patience had limits. One afternoon, in gym class, the coach paired Luca with Tyler for wrestling drills. A cruel joke. Everyone knew Tyler was the strongest guy in school, built like a tank. Luca, on the other hand, was lean, almost frail-looking. "This is gonna be fun," Tyler sneered as they stepped onto the mat. The coach blew the whistle. Tyler lunged. Luca barely moved. He let Tyler tackle him, pinning him down with ease. "Wow, that was pathetic," Tyler laughed, pressing his weight onto Luca's chest. "You're even weaker than I thought." Luca's eyes flickered up, just for a second. Something in his gaze made Tyler pause. It was cold, calculating, like he was studying him. Tyler shook it off and leaned in. "Why don't you just quit school, freak? You don't belong here." Luca exhaled slowly. His grandfather's voice echoed in his mind. "Observe your enemy. Let him believe he has won. Then, when the time is right, strike where it hurts the most." For now, Luca stayed down. For now. Because this wasn't about fighting back in some childish schoolyard brawl. This was about ending them, one by one. That night, Luca sat on the floor of his dimly lit bedroom, staring at an old photograph. The edges were worn, the ink slightly faded, but the image was still clear. Alessandro Moretti, his grandfather, standing in front of a blacked-out Cadillac, a cigarette in one hand, a pistol in the other. Luca clenched his jaw. Most kids grew up with bedtime stories about knights and heroes. He grew up with lessons on survival. A man who lets others walk over him is already dead, Luca, his grandfather used to say. But revenge is not about anger. It is about patience. When the time comes, you won't need to throw the first punch. They will destroy themselves. Luca had spent his whole life suppressing that side of himself. His mother had done everything to keep him away from that world, the world of violence, of debts paid in blood, of respect earned through fear. But tonight, something shifted inside him. He picked up a pocket knife from his bedside table, a gift from his grandfather. He flicked it open, running a finger over the blade. A knife isn't about strength, it's about knowing where to cut. Luca wasn't planning to use it, not yet, but the game had officially begun. Tomorrow, the bullies would learn what it felt like to be hunted. The next day, everything seemed normal at school. The halls were crowded, students laughed, lockers slammed shut. But for Luca, this was the calm before the storm. He walked into class, silent as always, taking his usual seat at the back. Tyler and his gang were already there, whispering and chuckling. They had something planned. Luca could feel it. And he was right. When he opened his locker between classes, a rotting sandwich fell out, splattering onto his shoes. Laughter erupted behind him. Man, I think he needed a free lunch, Chase sneered. Luca didn't react. Later, during chemistry, Ryan accidentally spilled his drink all over Luca's notebook, ruining his notes. Still, Luca said nothing. By lunch, they were getting impatient. "Come on, Moretti," Derek said, blocking his way in the cafeteria. "Aren't you gonna do something, or are you just gonna keep being a little bit—" Luca looked up. For the first time in weeks, he made eye contact. A slow, unsettling smile crossed his lips. "You'll see soon enough," he murmured. Tyler and his gang frowned. Something about the way he said it didn't feel right. That night, Luca started phase 1 of his plan. The first step to breaking a man wasn't hitting him. It was making him question his own sanity. The next morning, Tyler woke up feeling off. Something wasn't right. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I see you." His eyebrows furrowed. A prank? He ignored it. At school, the first sign that something was wrong came when Ryan opened his locker. A single photo sat inside, a picture of Ryan sleeping, taken from inside his bedroom. Ryan's face drained of color. "What the hell is this?" he stammered, showing the others. Tyler snatched the photo, flipping it over. On the back, a message was scribbled in black ink. "You picked the wrong person." Chase laughed nervously. "All right, which one of you idiots did this?" But nobody admitted to it. Then Derek checked his backpack. His entire textbook was missing, replaced with a stack of shredded pages from that very book. His hands started to tremble. One by one, things kept happening. Tyler's car alarm randomly went off 5 times that day, even though no one was near it. Chase's locker lock was jammed shut with superglue. Ryan kept hearing footsteps behind him in the hallway, but when he turned around, no one was there. Luca watched from a distance, his expression unreadable. He wasn't attacking them physically. He was getting inside their heads, and this was only the beginning. By the end of the week, Tyler and his gang were unraveling. Ryan had stopped talking much. He kept looking over his shoulder, jumping at shadows. Chase hadn't been able to open his locker for days. His hands were still sticky from trying. Derek barely spoke. His paranoia was eating him alive. But Tyler, he was furious. "Who the hell is messing with us?" He snapped at his friends. "Somebody's gonna pay for this." That's when his phone buzzed again. Unknown number. "You should be careful, Tyler. Some people don't know when to stop." Tyler's blood ran cold. His fingers clenched around the phone. Another text came in. Unknown number. Check under your car." His heart pounding, he ran to the parking lot. He hesitated, then crouched down and looked. There, taped to the undercarriage, was a small black envelope. He ripped it off, tore it open. Inside was a single playing card, the Ace of Spades. And beneath it, in small, neat handwriting, just 3 words: "I warned you." Tyler stood frozen, gripping the card so hard his knuckles turned white. He wasn't sure how, but he knew who was behind this: Luca Moretti. But what scared him the most was the realization that Luca hadn't even touched him. And yet Tyler was terrified. Tyler couldn't take it anymore. He needed to end this. That night he stormed out of his house, fists clenched, jaw tight. He didn't care if it was Luca. That quiet little freak had messed with the wrong guy. He was going to find him and make him pay. But as soon as he stepped onto his driveway, he froze. Luca was already there, sitting on the hood of his car, calm, silent, waiting. "You," Tyler snarled, "you think this is funny?" Luca tilted his head, his expression unreadable. Then slowly he reached into his pocket. Tyler's breath caught. His instincts screamed at him to run. Luca pulled out a folded piece of paper. He tossed it at Tyler's feet. "Read it," Luca said softly. Tyler hesitated, then picked it up. His eyes widened. It was an old newspaper article, a crime report. Alessandro Moretti, the most feared mafia enforcer of his era. Underneath, a black and white photo of a much younger version of Luca's grandfather, cold-eyed, ruthless, standing over a man who had clearly lost a fight he never should have started. Tyler's heart pounded. He looked up at Luca, his mouth dry. You're making this up," he stammered. Luca stepped closer, too close, and then he whispered, so only Tyler could hear, "Am I?" Tyler staggered back. His mind was spinning. Was this a joke? Was it real? It didn't matter, because in that moment, he believed it. The next day, Tyler and his gang avoided Luca at all costs. No more shoving, no more taunts. No one dared to speak his name. And Luca, he simply sat in his usual seat at the back of the classroom, silent, smiling, because his grandfather was right. You don't need to throw the first punch. If you know the right way to play the game, they'll destroy themselves.